Welcome everybody to today's webinar, in the latest in the series on the Roundtable for a Customer Revolution. We're thrilled to be talking about the topic of the intersection and collaboration between customer success and customer marketing, because in the roundtable that you're going to hear about in this webinar, the inability for those teams to work closely together was one of the biggest gaps that was causing the company to not be able to deliver on some of their most important strategic growth initiatives. My name is Jeff Ernst. I'm co-founder and CEO of Slap5, the leading customer marketing software platform, joined today by my cohort, Bill Lee, who I'll introduce in just a second. But what we're going to do on today's webinar is we're going to have Bill talk a little bit about the roundtable and the three key findings that came out of that and how it relates to how all of us in customer success and customer marketing can be climbing the ladder and advancing our career by advancing the impact that we have on the growth of our companies. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the preliminary findings of some research that we did that came out of the roundtable on the state of customer marketing and customer success collaboration 2022. And then I'm going to hand it back to Bill when we're going to have a conversation with Teresa, Anania, and Evan Woock from Zendesk around how they have been advancing their career by driving deeper impact on their companies, as well as collaborating around both in-person, virtual, and digital engagement with customers. So with that, let me turn it back over to Bill.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, everybody. And I want to start out, as Jeff said, with some context. What the heck is the roundtable for a customer revolution? These are the founders. And as you can see, it's a very exclusive group, and they absolutely dug the idea of a customer revolution. And the learning from this has been extraordinary. We've got enough transcripts to fill a small book. Jeff and I will be sharing this information with you over the next few weeks and months down the road. For now, there's three insights that emerged that I think are of special importance to this audience. And here they are, coming from the roundtable. Number one, the customer marketing profession has the potential to explode like customer success has done in the last 5 to 7 years. And sure enough, ripped from the headlines, LinkedIn just announced the top 25 jobs on the rise in the United States. Number 3 top job is customer marketing. Our roundtable was prescient on that. Number 2, insight. Customer marketing needs professionals who are on a career path to senior leadership in their firms. And we're talking about specifically getting a seat at the strategy table. I can tell you that these sophisticated, high-level senior leaders who sit at their strategy tables, they want to hear from you. They are open to your to the value and the difference you can make to their firms. And finally, number 3, customer success plus customer marketing is poised to eat the world. And the best way, the most elegant way to see this came out of the roundtable. And what the discussion was, if you look at the customer journey, it's really a series of decisions, difficult, stressful decisions, sometimes career impacting decisions. At each decision point, who do you think the customers want to hear from most? With the stakes being what they are. At each decision in the customer journey, not just pre-sale, not when we know we need references and advocates, but pre-sale and post, customers most want to hear from other customers. That's from Nick Mehta, CEO of Gainsight. That's why customer success plus customer marketing. It's the most elegant way I have seen to show why customer success plus customer marketing is poised to eat the world. So let's get on with the banquet.
We were motivated coming out of this roundtable to really dig deeper because these executives highlighted that they had this gap. And so we said, let's do some research to find out 3 things. 1, how big a gap really is it? And what is the perception, both coming from the customer marketing side and the customer success side? Number 2, let's try to figure out what are the biggest factors that are contributing to this gap. And then number 3, what are companies doing both successfully and unsuccessfully today to try to fill that gap? What I'm going to be showing here now is just some preliminary results from that survey, but I have a link that I'll show you in just a minute to where we're looking for people to continue to take the survey, because we're going to be turning it into a report this year called the State of Customer Marketing and Customer Success 2022. We asked them, how do you think customer marketing and customer success are working together within your firm today in order to drive strategic initiatives that both benefit the customer and benefit your company? And you can see here, only 4% said that these two teams are working closely together. 74%, if you look at the first three buckets, are in what I would call the fail category. Either they don't work together at all, they work separately, but kind of keep each other informed about what they're doing, or maybe they pick and choose the types of things that they're working on, but they're not joined at the hip. And so this confirms what we've heard from all of you. So, no surprise here. So here we're digging into, what's getting in the way, what's causing these teams to not be able to work together. And this was on a scale of 1 to 5 where they rated each of these factors. And so not surprisingly, because we hear this all the time from customer marketers, is that the CSMs are just way too busy. I mean, we try to pile on 25, 50, sometimes 100 clients on each CSM. They're just trying to keep their head above water. And then they feel like customer marketing is coming to them asking for a piece of their customer. Come on, what more can you ask from me? And then another thing was sort of the mindset was called out, that customer marketers are operating more with a program managed mindset, wanting to engage customers over time in a more methodical way, whereas CSMs are really operating in a one-to-one relationship mindset, because they're all about building that tight relationship and really helping those customers be as successful as they can with your solution. And then similar to that, they have different or opposing goals and measures. And so oftentimes customer success in some companies, we've heard, do get measured on renewals, but not enough are they getting measured on surfacing customers that can be mobilized to participate in customer programs and things like that. Whereas that tends to be what customer marketing is goaled on. These are some of the 3 big causes there. What are companies trying to do about this? And don't try to read this slide. The important thing is that left to right, on the right are the things that people are doing the best or the most, that are having the most success with it. The things on the left are the things that they're not doing. But for companies that are having a lot of success bringing these two teams together, the number one thing they're having success doing is where customer marketing is running programs with customer success's help that gets customers to share their experiences or advice with other customers to help with adoption, expansion, and renewal. So if you think about that, that's not just using customers or mobilizing customers to drive customer acquisition. This is helping customer success with their goals of adoption, expansion, and renewal. So customer marketers, listen up. You need to not just think about customer acquisition. You need to be thinking about, if you want customer success to work with you, think about those strategic growth initiatives. The second, we've designed customer engagement activities that help customers showcase their success and build their reputations. This is often the pushback that customer success gives about tapping into customers, is what's in it for them. So the really successful firms have designed these programs so it's making their customers rock stars. It's not just having them shill for the company. And then the third one, we give customers lots of choices in the types of opportunities we offer them to engage. So it's not just say, write that full-blown case study. It's like, do you want to give product input? Do you want to participate in peer-to-peer discussions? Do you want to speak at an event? Do you want to showcase your experiences on video? I mean, so lots of different choices for how they engage with your company. So, and then you can see what's even more startling is over on the left side, the things that people aren't even attempting to do to jointly design and manage customer engagement touch points. Okay, I mean, that should be number one. Work together to figure out what those critical touch points are and how you can improve them. And very similar to that, they're not working together to define a customer journey that both teams support. So that's a big fail. And what it also means is there's just a huge potential. Here's the link to type in to go to take the survey yourselves. You'll get a copy of the findings of the report. And what we really appreciate is any customer marketers who take the survey, please have your customer success counterpart, and vice versa, any customer success people on the call, have your customer marketers, because when we slice and dice the findings for the report that we're going to write from this, we're going to show you how the perspectives differ from the coming from the customer success point of view versus the customer marketing point of view, because we've already seen in the data that those perspectives are very different. All right, back to you, Bill.
On with the show here. Let's introduce our special guests. And our first special guest is actually a founder of the Roundtable, one of the founders for the Roundtable for Customer Revolution. And Teresa, this is kind of our 2-year, what would we call it, anniversary. I sort of fell in business love with Teresa 2 years ago in January when I saw her doing this presentation with TSIA. I actually watched most of the speech. I got the transcript. I thought, wow. And we already had a keynote for our summit that year. And I said, we're going to have 2 keynotes. If she'll agree, if she'll accept, we're having 2 keynotes. She did say yes. She did keynote. It was incredible. She stayed the 2 days. Her participation was incredible. I thought, this is an executive who is going places. So at the time, she was a senior director. Today, she's senior vice president of, I'm not sure I can remember all these things, customer success, renewals, and customer experience. She's SVP over all of that. And that is a model. When I'm talking about getting to the C-suite, getting a career glide that gets you to the seat at the table, I can't think of a better role model than Teresa. That I mentioned, she's with Zendesk, one of the most respected, fast growth SaaS firms in all of creation. Thrilled to have her. And then Evan Woock. Am I pronouncing that correctly, Evan?
Yeah, you are.
He's been at Zendesk for 3 years. He comes from a broad marketing background, including product management, advertising, and sales. And right now he's leading what Zendesk calls its customer life cycle marketing program that supports a scaled global audience with programs reaching 90% of all Zendesk customers. And I think the way that I'm looking at you, I think Teresa looks at you this way. You're kind of like the digital customer marketing guy.
Yeah, exactly. Sort of mostly digital touch points on the scaled side, supporting what Teresa does with the human side.
Awesome, which would have to be the case when you're reaching 90% of customers. That's pretty amazing. Mm-hmm. So, Teresa, I'm going to start with you. Back to the theme of advice for career advancement, and any advice, thoughts you can share with our audience about getting on that glide, getting on that fast track, getting to the C-suite, as you are clearly in the process of doing. Any advice that you would care to offer?
Oh, sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoy these sessions. I learn as much from the folks on these calls as I hope I share with you and leave with you today. I think the journey was just one grounded in, a very hot practice. I mean, customer success, renewals, certainly customer marketing. These are imperative to any companies with subscription business models. I mean, we all know why we're in this space. You have to earn customers' business every year. This is so different than, our past, at least my past, where, software was on-prem and you could get that upfront payment and pretty much, I don't want to say neglect the customer, but customer experience was not that critical. The voice of the customer was not that critical. And today it couldn't be any different. So I'd say part of it is you're all in the right space because it's hot, it's growing, especially post-pandemic. Needs of customers are changing and evolving so quickly. So I would just say, keep the agility, be embracing change. That's, I think, one of my secret powers. I really do embrace change. I like to guide others through change. I also believe being obsessed with measurement and impact so that you can demonstrate results instead of speaking to them at the C table. I find a data-driven mix of both, stories from customers that are, more color and more subjective, mixed with the actual data, the insights, the attribution that can allow you to speak the language of the business and be able to attribute the work that your organization is doing to the actual business goals. So I think those are just some of the key things that help earn that seat at the C table, and then help, give you a slot in being a partner to that executive group, not just, a guest. And I think I couldn't be more excited about that journey. And I think it's just an exciting time for leaders of all, diversification, all types, to actually lean in and be able to, have your voice heard. And I, would always be available if you have any other mentor type questions.
Oh,
And Teresa, could I just ask a follow-up? Can you just dig a
Sure.
little bit into some of those measures that you pride yourself in being able to present to senior leadership?
Yeah, I'll never forget at Autodesk, as I was, building my career there to even get the senior director role, which was a big deal there. It really had to be grounded in actual, blind studies where you could create a control group. I mean, back in those days, they wanted it to be a true control group, a suppressed group, where you would actually, not have certain customers treated a certain way at all, and then have other customers with either a human engagement component like we were building, or a digital. And many times it was and then we would be able to indicate, what is the ultimate outcome? Well, we all know it's retention of that customer and long-term value. So expansion, upsell, cross-sell, whatever you want to call it. But what are the leading indicators that help you know that outcome is likely? And we had those too, which would be, for a SaaS world, potentially fast onboarding or first time to value in that onboarding experience. And then maybe a little later, adoption, some of the maturity curve, how are your customers advancing through the capabilities that help them achieve ROI that they expect from your solution. I mean, if you have ROI data on your customers receiving, value from your solutions, that's even better. So those metrics were all the beginning point. And then we would put a stake in the ground. We didn't work too hard or take too long to wait for perfect knowledge. What would be good? What would be better than good? And sometimes we miss the mark. We would set a goal that was just, not even achievable to, incrementally move the mark. We would baseline that. So what does a fast onboarding look like? Maybe 15, 30 days. Well, is our engagement with that customer, human or digital or both, actually getting a faster time to value than the control group? Now, these days, I will tell you, I've kind of formed my own point of view about, doing double-blind studies. I actually believe that the trade-off of suppressing and neglecting customers for any sustainable period of time is actually, not outweighing the benefits of a great double-blind study. So what we're doing is a little bit more agile, a little bit lighter weight. We're taking a control group that looks very similar to the actual test group, but we're not actually suppressing customers from a great experience. So I just share that because I think it all starts with the end outcome. And then you back into what are some leading indicators in your business. You might not have perfect data science to say what, early signals tell you a renewal is coming or not. We put a couple stakes in the ground, like the ones I shared. And then what it takes from there is being able to talk to the C-suite about, with our human engagement organization that I'm running, we had faster time to value by 10 days. We had, deeper adoption, maybe using more capabilities in the product or using more products in a suite than those that didn't have that human or digital engagement. And then at the end, we were able to see the renewal rate uplift by 4 points. And then you can dollarize that. 4 points of an uplift is 120 million in ARR. So that's what we lose if we take away the human engagement, or you can do the same for digital. It starts to build that ROI on building out the investment in CS renewals and experience.
there's so much on your plates, so much that you're having to contend with and so forth. So there's a big question about priorities here. And the thing with customer marketing and customer success, both have such great potential to impact the bottom line, to impact the business often in ways, I mean, at least I found, that the C-suite doesn't necessarily understand. They often default to the usual marketing motions or sales motions and so forth. So here's my question. If you're having to prioritize, if you can't do it all, if you don't have time for, you want to form a community, but let's say, and you just don't have bandwidth or budget to do that, how do you prioritize?
Evan, you go first. Evan, you're on mute.
Sorry. I would say, the first things first is building a business case, understanding where you think you're going to have impact, what is going to align with the goals of the overall business and the goals that you've established with your team. And then, I would say start small and verify, right? You don't have to climb Everest in one day. So, start picking off some low-hanging fruit, make sure that you're on the right track, and, assuming that you are, then continue down that road. But if not, there's always more on the list to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would just add to that, I think starting out with some data, if you have it around why customers leave, was always the way that then I found a clear prioritization of where we need to focus. So churn reasons, you might be capturing those in product. You might be having your CSMs or salespeople asking, and it's a more, VIP type experience. Maybe you're sending an email and you're getting some response rate. I think that data is critical. I think if you don't have that data, I would probably do some calls with customers that you're losing to learn this and just build some patterns. So I think that's one thing that can inform priorities. I think the other thing is also, in general, what I find is, every company could do better at retaining customers and getting greater value out of the customer. There's no one that says, our job is done and our retention rates in all cohorts in all regions, we're nailing it. We can get no better. So what I like to do is look at the drags in that data of where churn and contraction is happening, even if you don't have the color of why, and actually think about like bookends. Start with the experience near the end of the renewal period that is going to probably still be in time to turn some things around, not too late, but also not like you're starting at onboarding. Because I know the intuitive thing is, let's start building out an onboarding experience, or let's build a community and just create some excitement with the customers. I think if you start with where's the leaky bucket? How can we engage with the right customers towards like the time when they're going to have to think about, is your solution still a fit for them? That swarming really helps inform the preventative measures that you're going to need to do in the onboarding and earlier experiences. So if you have limited resources, which we all do, I say focus on the money, make sure you're supporting, or if you own the renewal experience, what can we do to save and turn these things around? It might be that you're hosting a product seminar around some critical roadmap activities that are coming up, because that's what customers need to hear in order to buy into your solution in the next year and feel that trust. Those are the kinds of ways you can then inform your priorities.
Awesome. Are you all, Teresa, this is for either one of you, are you all finding situations where you more or less bring customers, connect customers with other customers, and kind of let them solve some of these problems, even if it's renewal or whatever, getting them together in some kind of forum or some kind of, it could be, obviously it could be research like you're talking about, but also are you finding it useful to get them together in the flesh or in the Zoom as we're doing it today or wherever, Microsoft Teams? Are you finding opportunities to do that in ways that kind of ease the burden on you and your staffs?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll start there, and then I want Evan to weigh in on some of the marketing broader events. But my team has set up a very, I'd say, high value, but still repeatable program using Zoom now that we're all in this remote state, and it's called the Mindshare program. I mean, that's kind of the big umbrella. There's various flavors. I think it has absolutely been a differentiator for our company. We have customers that come together that are like-minded. Obviously, we're intentionally designing out, the media plan as far as what are the themes, what are most, bubbling up as critical topics that our customers want to talk about. Like, think of, we build a CRM platform for support and service. So our customers during this whole like post-pandemic thing, it's all about how to manage virtual teams that are doing support. And so, that's an idea where we bring together customers that have very much interest in this. And we also make sure that we group, C-level people with C-level people, admins that are doing the Zendesk day-to-day implementation with other admins. That way the topics are actually very relevant. You feel very comfortable in the, network and the peer-to-peer experiences. And yes, we open it up with the topic, some of the problem statements, but I will tell you, our customers take it from there. And it definitely has built into the entire experience of when you're buying our solution, it's not just the product, it's also this community experience that you're part of. Evan, do you have something to add maybe on the broader community side?
Well, I think, those events have been tremendously successful and a great experience for our customers, as Teresa said. I think sort of on the marketing angle, I know that our regional teams are very active in making sure that our customers connect with each other, each with their own flavor of their events, but they find a lot of value in that. Frankly, the company finds a lot of ideas in those meetings. And then we do have a very active customer community that, helps with scaling out where customers can find answers for themselves. Obviously at Zendesk, we know that empowering customers to be able to solve their own issues is very important. And, new use cases spin up out of that. It's a great environment to foster connection and learning and ideas. And obviously we support it very much.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Jeff, I'm still getting some chance here. Can you hear me? Everybody hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I turned up the volume in my microphone. It was turned down a little bit. So anyway, do you have some questions coming in?
Not yet. I just wanted to tell people we do want to have your questions. Go to the chat, raise your hand. We'll call on you if you have a question for either the hosts or our special guests.
Or you can just put it in the chat if you're shy.
Or
shy.
yeah, if you don't like to hear your own voice, yeah, you can put them in the chat.
So I'm interested in Mindshares because this was somewhat, when you formed Mindshares, as you said, you don't necessarily, you're the billion-dollar company in revenue, fast growth, blah, 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 senior person. You don't get budget for certain things necessarily. And you, if I remember this correctly, you didn't have budget to form an executive group with all the bells and whistles that usually attend to that, or customer advisory boards and so forth, which becomes kind of a heavy lift as you described it. And so you did this low budget, just show up and let people talk to each other, stop overthinking it, let them talk, and magic happens. Is that a fair description of how Mindshares works?
I think, we've now, because we've been able to demonstrate impact, which we basically just took a lot of the customers that are attending and how many they're attending, and we can again attribute that to growth and expansion in our portfolio. We're now getting a little bit more investment, which is really cool. But yes, we started very scrappy. These were events that we used to do in person, and they were a big, heavy lift, and they were one-to-one, very much only for our very, very top customers that were spending, $1 million plus. And now, to be able to do this with a very light effort, Lisa, who runs these for me, might disagree because it's a job and a half, but I have one person and she literally has led 75 of these events in the last quarter. This is how, in the last year. This is how critical this is, 75. And we're actually turning people away. We limit attendance to about 20 to 23 per event. And there were 75 of them. So you can imagine the number of customers we're touching you can imagine, like, yeah, you have to have a little bit of facilitation, skills so that you have a great meeting flow and customers all feel heard and they feel like, and then you ask for ideas after the meeting. You do a quick survey and you get better feedback. That's a way to start pretty scrappy, but
Yeah.
still you can be assured that they're getting value out of that.
And Teresa, what do you then do? How do you make sure that you're infusing those insights that you are gathering into every fiber of your company that could benefit from getting closer to the customer? Because that's a challenge that a lot of my clients in particular, that they're trying to figure out how to do that.
Yeah, I will tell you, it's hard and we're still on that journey. So, scrappy, sending out an email to the account team with the key insights that were taken down during the meeting from each of the critical customers. Sometimes there's great follow-up needs. Sometimes it's just context. Obviously, putting the key engagement notes into the CRM, customer 360, so that every account-facing person can say, oh, we know you attended the last mind share. That's great. But no, you're absolutely right. The patterning, the ways to build that into what we're doing, it might be just, again, a very scrappy method, is we're organizing so that now that person is going to be leading a lot of the other targeted engagement. So using all her great experiences of the themes coming out of that, how do we make our executive briefing center events even better? How do we make our thought leadership, our benchmark data and insights that we're using in these meetings even better? So, it's really leveraging kind of the org structure to do it, honestly, pretty scrappy. And then, ideal state would be that, like in a tool like Gainsight, which we also use alongside with Zendesk, to be able to surface like, hey, you have a $300,000 spend customer and they haven't attended one of these events. You need to, be positioning the value in this so that we could see the white space and then be able to action on key things that come out of those meetings, just served up to the CSM or served up to the salesperson that they need to follow up. But it is hard. I see a question in the chat if we want to use that. Yeah.
From Karen. Thank you, Karen. How do you define what responsibilities are under the customer marketing versus customer success teams? Is it defined by one-to-one or one-to-many? How do you do
Evan,
that?
I know you have been working with my scaled, leader, Carrie, quite a bit on this. Why don't you take that one?
Sure. So I think it's about creating a support structure where things can work together. I mean, we do have some defining lines. They started out a lot brighter and they've become a little bit more blurred these days as, we've tried to tackle bigger problems together. When we started, there was very much a hard limit on the size of the customer. But these days, we've expanded the marketing support beyond that and well into some of our largest customers. And, everybody always got our onboarding programs and everybody gets support during their trial. As we've built out those programs, improved more value, we've started to really partner a lot closer to make sure that we're still not stepping over the lines of having, I'm not trying to build a success team and Teresa's not trying to build out a marketing team, but we make sure that we're speaking the same language, achieving the same goals together and tackling big and small problems to make sure that we have best practices and we're staying informed and all of those things.
Yeah, and I would just add to that Evan's exactly right. The lines are blurring, which makes it sound like we're going backwards, but actually it's a good thing because we are working very closely together in designing out, like I mentioned to you, those key leading indicators like onboarding success, right? Well, guess what? How do you drive onboarding success? Because how you're going to measure that, we look at it like number of agents that you're utilizing compared to what you bought. Well, how are you driving that? If you're looking for that as an outcome, are you using your digital experiences to really drive that outcome? So using the customer journey mapping to really lay out what do you want customers' experiences to be? And then at that table, I think the way I see it, Evan's going off, he's building out the digital channels for really all customers. And then we're going off and we're saying, let's coordinate whatever's happening with digital with the human so that there is no bad customer experience, that they're not feeling like, wait, I just got an email from, Zendesk marketing on a topic, and now this human is calling with the exact same information. So we're being very complimentary, and we're orchestrating the connection so that we could see, oh, if they haven't opened the email and haven't clicked the call to action in the email or in the in-product experience, and they're off track from that onboarding fast time to value, human outreach. And so coordinating the customer experience has allowed us to be super clear about where we draw the lines, not necessarily like, to your point, we don't say like all one-to-many is Evan, all one. It's more about the customer experience digital and the channels that Evan is managing versus the human engagement and how you want to orchestrate those two.
Can I follow up on that, Teresa and Evan? Does the fact of splitting these up between digital and human and thinking of it that way, does that cause confusion? Isn't it all about human to human?
Well, I mean,
sometimes you talk to the humans through digital, and sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, yes, you can look at it that way. That's a good point. You have to always, even with digital connections, ensure you're being personalized. So I think that's your point. It has to feel like human to human. And Evan's team does a really good job using the best data we have to inform a more personalized experience. But I still think there is something super critical about self-serve versus raising your hand and saying, I really need to talk to someone. And I think it's important to be able to scale your business to leverage both. We cannot keep throwing more humans at our growing book of business in a linear way. We have to be leveraging digital to deflect, to self-serve, to allow customers to have that progression along the maturity curve, not always requiring the human. And I think when you start to segment and differentiate, the digital and the human components have to emerge as a way you scale the business.
Let me suggest that you can't scale employees, you can't scale bodies. We totally get that, but you don't need to do that. In other words, there are lots of situations where customers don't want to be bothered. It's kind of like when I go to the rent car, back when I was traveling more, you go and they stop you up, they keep you from your car when you get to the airport, trying to chat you up with personalized experience. It's like, shut up.
I don't want it. Yeah.
I suspect there's a lot more of that out there that we're doing, thinking we're building relationships, just ticking people off.
Yeah.
Anyway, just a thought.
No, it's a very good thought. In fact, it's a little bit grounded in a topic I'm really passionate about around dynamic segmentation, because I do believe that the old days of doing success and even customer marketing were, I don't mean one size fits all. I think we've all gotten at least to a point where things are segmented and personalized, and you might have a different experience for a small customer versus a large one. But I think what's next is, how is the customer reacting to your engagement? Whether it's digital and they've never opened up an email ever, whether it's human and we keep doing these outreaches, but they're either not giving us the right level of person, or we're just getting ghosted, whatever you want to call it. Our data and insights are now starting to look at the outcomes of those engagements and determining how we want to engage further. Because it's fine to you've all gotten an email where it said, you know what, we're going to take you off our list because we don't see you getting benefit of this information. Oh my gosh, that's enough to get someone to say, wait, don't do that yet, versus the ones that never respond. Like, clean up the experience so that you're putting the right resources on the right customers and that you're moving them along that maturity curve, but you're not doing things that they're not getting value from, because we all know we have limited resources.
Yeah.
And Teresa, I'm glad that you mentioned that the distinction between customer marketing and customer success can blur, right? Because in our research that we did, nobody mentioned that the lack of clear distinction between roles was a reason that the teams weren't working together. It was more other things. But tying this back to that research, one of the things that they did say is that that I pointed out when I went through that was that one of the things that's working best is when the customer marketing and customer success do work together to help drive the goals of adoption, using more of what they've already bought, because that's going to help with renewal, expanding usage to more advanced modules and things, because that could lead to upsell potential, which then both tie to renewal. So maybe this is a question for Evan. Is it on the digital side, are you also in addition to some of the face-to-face or virtual meetings that are bringing customers together, are you doing things digitally that also help drive the goals that customer success has of adoption, expansion and renewal?
Yeah, well, my team doesn't end up working on the expansion side. That is one of those sort of division of responsibilities. So we're really on the renewal and the adoption, and we have a very active role in supporting how customers are adopting. And like Teresa said, some of those customers are self-serve, and we want to provide them with the very best resources that we can, and use what we know about the product and what we know about them as customers to help them along that journey, and trying to be better and better about that every day. And for those customers who are, raising their hand, or just by the nature of the account are going to receive a little bit more of a white glove service, we support that in the best way that we can, and we make sure that we're informing them of the human resources that they can take full advantage of, so that they can have the resources that they can look back on either in their email box, or we'll point them to where they can find it in our help center, but also to make sure that they talk all of that through, with the account managers and the customer success folks that they're going to be working with on a frequent basis.
So I do see some chatter going on in our group here around, around goals and measures and things like that. And I wonder if you could give us just a little more detail on anything you're doing around, are there any either joint measures or closely aligned measures between the customer success and customer marketing side that you've put in place?
I mean, I think that's essential. If we're not all agreeing on what the outcome has to be in the end, the ultimate goal, we ground ourselves in basically NRR, that kind of method, because it's churn and contraction and expansion, cross-sell, upsell. So those are the two goals we're measured by. And certainly we have to think about then what are the leading indicators to get us to those better goals, and all basically sign up for our piece of it. Evan, I know you've come to my QBRs showing the impact that your digital methods are having on some of the churn and contraction, some of the ways, especially in the smaller accounts where we have no human coverage, what that life cycle marketing is doing for that customer, and better than, again, customers that are having zero engagement with that content or aren't even getting that content. So that is just an example where we're aligning. I don't know that we have comp alignment, exactly the same. My team holds a number. I think, Evan, your team is in support of that number, but that's my 2 cents. I don't know, Evan, if you want to add anything.
Yeah, I would say that our ultimate goals remain aligned, and we do hold a number, but it's for what would be primarily the customers who receive a digital experience. But I would just say that what that starts to cascade down into, my team measures campaigns differently than what a human interaction would look like. So we necessarily have to have some of our own measures, but they're derived from the same goals that we're all looking at around adoption and retention and driving new revenue and new business from these customers. So how we get there might be a little bit different, but proving that impact and the real business case behind what's going on is super important, so that we know what each other are doing and what's working and what's not.
I saw one other question that was raised about the tech touch. It says, what is customer marketing's role in digital CSM, tech touch model? There's a lot of CS tools. That's another, I think, pragmatic thing we can share. So, we leave to Evan and his organization and we help define what we'd like to see in that experience for anything where it's like a one-to-many as far as digital experiences, like in-product experiences and or emails with, you know, the onboarding, self-serve content, the adoption content that we want to be pushing out to hundreds of thousands of customers, at least, you know, tens of thousands. What my team does is, again, and we're on the human side, you know, and I have a scaled team that does nothing but trigger-based engagement. They're able to see the you know, the experience that the digital team is sharing with our customers. They can even start to see now the engagement of our customers with that experience. And then their outreach is all based on, you know, a trigger-based call to action. We're using Gainsight Journey Orchestrator to do this, but there's other tools where it says, you know, if, you know, 60 days has passed, agents that they purchased are only being utilized up to 30%, whatever, of the total they're entitled to, you know, and, you know, they're not even opening some of our emails. That is a high priority outreach. And then when they're doing that outreach, they have the benefit as enablement of all the content that Evan's team has sent to be their kind of talk track, right? Like, hey, we, you know, sent you some key ways to utilize more of the entitlement you have, what's holding you up. And that outreach is like a one moment in time. Now they may use email to say like, hey, I tried to reach you. They have their picture in the email. You know, I'm the customer success person for you. Please call me back or schedule on my Calendly when you can meet. So they're doing like the one-to-one kind of emails, but they're not doing like mass blasts of emails and digital experiences. That's how we coordinate.
And then, so how do you then make sure that the CSMs are well-versed in what the one-to-many communications are, so that they're taking advantage of it, not being too redundant, or maybe reinforcing it, or things like that, because it needs to be orchestrated plays, right? Yeah. So how, like just kind of getting into the brass tacks a little bit, how do you make sure that they're all, you know, aware of what's been going on and not stepping on each other's toes?
I mean, it started out, right, Evan, is just kind of sharing back and forth manually, like, here's the experience your customers are getting, and oh, we'll give you a link to the actual content, you know, and copy so that you can see it. I think we've gotten better. I think in Gainsight, we're linking up Eloqua, which is our marketing automation tool, with the Gainsight UX so that we can actually, you know, see live, like what has gone out, what they've engaged with, et cetera. But I mean, we're not all the way there. Like, you could start pretty scrappy. And I remember, Evan, you just share the customer journey, you know, the digital journey. And then we'd share like, okay, our outreach has been completely just separate, but let's share it. And then we came together and said, how do we orchestrate? And I think now the new experience is a little bit more like, oh, if you're pushing that out with email, we're going to use that when we have a conversation, especially if they never opened that email, and kind of getting more eyeballs on the very content you're all building for your customers. Why not enable your humans to have that same content? It's just the way to tie it all together so that the customer feels like it's a cohesive experience.
Yeah, and I would go so far as to say now we plan together, right? So it started off as, hey, here's our plans, so you know, right? And then it was, let's share the data and let's have constant syncs, and how is the things going, what you're doing, and how are what we're doing going. And now it's, hey, what should we do? Let's plan together, and so now it's really in lockstep.
That's great.
We are close. We have time for one more, Jeff?
I think we do, and but I don't see any other questions. And so I think, wait, here we go, Holly. Can you elaborate on the 90% reach of customers you mentioned
Evan,
at the start of the session?
Yeah, Evan, take that one.
The 90% reach.
I'm sorry, I was checking time. What was the question? Can you elaborate?
It's about the 90%
We're
reach.
reaching 90% of your customers.
Oh, it's a mix between email and in product, but our systems are built in such a way that we can really have a strong overlap there. I would say that the piece that in product reaches from email at this point that's different is only those folks who have unsubscribed from the emails that we're able to reach on a different channel. But we were able to scale those up pretty effectively over time. Now, it didn't happen overnight, but you know, over the course of a couple of years, we were able to get there.
So I think that's in product and email engagement, and that's, yeah, or at least addressable market, right?
Yeah,
Right.
people who we're able to, you know, reach with those channels that we know are not bouncing back, unsubscribed, you know, opted out of in product notifications, all that kind of
Right,
stuff.
but that's not to be confused with like our click through, or, you know, like there,
No.
we all know it's never as much as we'd like. But I do think in product, doesn't it, Evan, get a better engagement than even some of the emails sometimes? Because you're right in there.
Yeah, you're right there. Yeah, it's a much more seamless experience, but we've found a way to make those two play off of each other. So if you're interested in something in email and you're going to go into the product to explore more, that we can catch you right there and help continuously lead you through that experience.
Yeah.
So this is fantastic. A couple key takeaways I have here is that the job responsibilities are separate, but the planning process happens together, right? So it doesn't have to be doing the same work. In the measures themselves, the exact measures that each team has can be separate, but they need to be aligned. You have them aligned around the same strategic goals. And then my third key takeaway, it's all about communication, right? Having these teams communicating together, and you just really can't over communicate.
And don't forget measurement.
Oh yeah, right. That's key to everything, right? That's how we prove our value, so that we can climb the ladder within our companies and continue to increase the impact that we have on the growth of our companies.
That's right. Okay, great. It was nice to be here. Thank you for having us.
Great to have you, Teresa. Great to meet and have you, Evan, and everybody. Thanks for participating.
And we'll be sending around a follow-up with the recording, with the link to the survey for those of you that haven't taken it yet.
Great.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Evan.